Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. In this video, we're going to talk about myths about the Chevy Nova, things that people say about the Chevy Nova that aren't true, and some of those things I've talked about, and it's not exactly great information, so we're going to clear some of that up. Alright, myth number one, and probably the biggest one of all, is that the Chevy Nova did not sell well in South America because the word Nova means doesn't go, and that's not true. Nova, or Novas I think, I'm not sure, I don't speak Spanish, means doesn't go. Well, that's two words. Nova is one word. Nova was also a brand of gasoline sold in South America at the time, so it was pretty common word, and it didn't really distract customers from buying a Chevy Nova. They introduced the Chevy Nova in the South American market in 1972, which is the third gen. And they sold them that same model longer there than they did here. They were making the what we call a 68 to 72 model. They made that until like 1978 or 79, I think, in South America, different parts. They changed something, I think they called it the Series 2, something like that. It's still a Nova, but the package was a Series 2, something like that. I might be wrong on that, but the fact is the Nova did sell really well in South American markets. It sold better than it was expected to. The whole thing about it means doesn't go or won't go, complete myth, somebody made it up. Myth number two is that there's some kind of secret way to tell if a 68 to 74 Nova is an SS. Well, in a 72 Nova, yeah, you can tell if the fifth digit of the VIN is a K. That means you have an L48 engine, which was SS only, so all K code 1972 Novas are SS Novas. They're super sports. Now, all of the years, 68 to 74, it's pretty much impossible to tell without an original engine that was an SS only engine or without paperwork. So there are a few clues that would tell you that a car should have been an SS or could have been an SS, very strong possibility, but no certain way. One of the best clues that I have never seen on a non-SS car, but I've also never verified some of them that had it as an SS car, but they were pretty good clues, is an exhaust hanger on the driver's side on the frame rail behind the rear tire. That is only on super sport cars because they had the dual exhaust from the factory. Now, there might be some super sport cars out there without that. I doubt it, but it's possible. And there might be some non-super sport cars out there that had it. Again, as far as I know, you could only get that on a super sport car, so I'm not certain about that thing, but a lot of people that really know their stuff, not me, will say that that is only an SS thing. But again, if somebody's really good at welding, they could reproduce that and pass something off. But without the original engine, most super sports are just not worth that much anyway, any more than a regular car, so it kind of doesn't matter in my opinion. All right, myth number three, 73, 74 front clips or fenders or whatever will not fit on 68 to 72 or vice versa. It's all wrong. Now, the truth is the fenders on a 73, 74 are exactly like the fenders on a 70 to 72. They're shaped the same as a 68, 69, but the side marker holes are different. Now, some of the very small differences that might make trim or something fit different, or have to drill a hole or something, might be like side marker holes might be in a different spot, emblem holes might be in a different spot, but like the front fender right here, the fender extension, couldn't think of the name of it, the fender extension, this unbolts, and then the regular roll eyebrow from the 68 to 72 will bolt right on that. You might have to drill a hole at the very bottom. Some of them in the 73 especially had the hole in the bottom. Some of them didn't, but the fenders are exactly the same shape, length, dimensions, everything. There's no difference in the 73, 74 fenders from the 68 to 72 shape. Now, like I said, the side markers are different. The hood, everything from this front piece up and back is exactly the same shape. The only difference is this front lip has different, the back of it is different, and it has a section hanging down on 68, 72 because the trim is different. Now, the hoods aren't really interchangeable as far as trim goes because the way it hangs down and stuff, but they're the same shape. So you can use a 68, 72 hood on a 73, but the trim is going to get in the way of the grip. The subframes are the other thing that people think are different. Now, 74s had shock absorbers, 73s did not. 73s had 1 year only bumper brackets, just like 68 72 had brackets, but it's a different bracket because it's a different bumper. Now, the 74s have the same subframe, except for there's not an extra set of holes in there for the bumper brackets like there is on 73. So 68 to 73 subframes are exactly the same. Now there may be some subtle differences between years, but functionally and the way they bolt up, they're exactly the same. 74 is the same, except for you have to drill a couple of bolt holes if you're going to put either a 73 bumper on it, or if you're going to put a 68 to 72 bumper on the 74 subframe. Functionally, the way it bolts up and everything else, it's all the same. So the people that say the front clips or the front ends are different, they're wrong. All right, myth number 4. Maybe not so much of a myth as just bad information. So a lot of times you'll see people ask about parts and how they fit online, and on Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Well, I saw a post the other day on one of the Facebook Nova groups, and on that post it said something about, hey, these headers are junk, they don't fit. I've tried 2 different sets of them, sent them back, they're terrible, they don't fit my car. And other people had suggested those headers and they fit fine. Well, the problem with that is a lot of these cars, they have tolerance stacking where all the cars aren't going to measure exactly the same. And when you're trying to fit headers, especially if you got power steering on one of these cars, there's very little room for error. Some of the aftermarket heads have the exhaust ports raised, 125 thousandths of an inch, which is 1/8 of an inch. And that little bit right there can be enough to cause interference and fitment issues, spark plug issues. On one of my cars, I changed heads. Well, the spark plugs were in a different location just slightly, and now the boots are burning up and getting hot, and I'm having spark plug wire problems. Had to beat on the headers to get them to clearance. Well, that doesn't happen on the other heads I had on there, which were also aftermarket aluminum heads or factory heads. There's no problem with the spark plug boots. But one brand of heads, it's moved just enough, or the tolerance is a little bit different, to where now I'm having problems. So you get a lot of different things going on there. You got a 50-year-old car, things have moved around, bushings are worn out, it's been painted, it's been shimmed up different. All kinds of different fitment issues could arise from the car being old, from tolerance stacking, variances in manufacturing processes, even throughout the years of the cars, things moved around a little bit. So, and this will tie into myth number 5 also, but not all parts are bolt-on ready right out of the box. Some of them are designed to be fitted, or they're just going to have to be fitted. Maybe not designed that way, but sheet metal, some fenders and hoods and stuff like that, you're going to have to adjust them a little bit to make them fit right. Headers and stuff like that, it's really, they're going to get you close, most of them. Some of them are terrible, don't get me wrong. There's some bad parts out there that fit awful, and there's no reason for that. But at the same time, this stuff that's really close, or people, especially if you're buying a coated header or something like that, you don't want to beat on it. You don't want to beat on a ceramic coated header, stainless steel stuff. You don't want to have to bang it up. Different parts, you pay enough for some of these parts to where you really think they ought to fit better than they do, and some of them should fit better. But for the most part, if someone tells you a part doesn't fit, well, it might not fit their car, but it might fit yours. It might fit their car, it might not fit yours. So on some of that, you just have to kind of do the best you can, and hopefully it works out. All right, now for myth number 5, and this is more of misinformation, wrong information, or not enough information, probably is the best way to describe it, and I'm as guilty of anybody else of perpetuating this information. So I cannot count the amount of times, even probably today, someone asked on one of the Facebook groups or somewhere on a forum somewhere, they asked, what is the biggest tire I can put on my stock wheel well on my 68-74 Nova? And there will be 500 answers, and most of them will tell you the same thing I've told people in the past. You can run a 275 60-15 tire with a 15x8 wheel with 5.5-inch back spacing. Now, the actual sweet spot is more like 5-inch back spacing, but most wheel manufacturers do not offer 5-inch back spacing. They offer 4.5 or 5.5. Now, with 4.5-inch back spacing, that puts your tire too far out on the edge, okay? Too close to the outer wheel houses. And most of these rear ends are offset to the passenger side, so while the driver's side may clear because it's tucked in a little bit with a 4.5, it'll probably still be close. The passenger side will probably rub with a 4.5-inch wheel. I haven't seen one that won't. 5.5 or 5-inch back spacing gets it in there just right, everything's good. 5.5-inch back spacing, which is what most wheels are offered in along with 4.5-inch, is the ticket, because then you can adjust it with wheel spacers and use a good billet wheel spacer, not the cheap cast aluminums with giant holes in there that don't center up on the lug nuts or the wheel studs. So what I had to do on Franken-Nova, I've run a 15 by 8 with a 5.5 inch back spacing. Now, since the rear end is offset to the passenger side, like 95% or more of the 68 to 72 Novas, 74 Novas, since it's offset to that side, I have to run a 1/4 inch wheel spacer on the passenger side and a 1/2 inch on the driver's side. Now, I used to run a 1/2 inch on both, and with my slicks, I can run a 1/2 inch on both sides and have no fitment issues. But my slicks are 28 by 9. A 275/60 is bigger than a 28 by 9 slick. Well, on street tires, since the rear end is offset to the passenger side a little bit, I run a 1/4 inch on my passenger side because that gets me far enough away from the outer lip to where it doesn't rub and the car sits down pretty low. And a lot of that depends on how high your car sits. Some people, no weird wheel spacing or back spacing or whatever, because they got the car sitting up high enough to where it clears the tire anyway, so it doesn't matter. But a 1/4 inch spacer on mine with a 5.5 inch back spacing gets me far enough away from the outer wheelhouse lip, or the outer wheelhouse lip, to where it's not rubbing, and also from the inside inner wheelhouse lip, to where the inside's not rubbing. On the driver's side of the car, I have to run a 1/2 inch spacer. I'm miles away from the lip on the outer wheelhouse, and I'm good enough off the lip on the inner wheelhouse. If I put a 1/4 inch spacer on both sides, then the driver's side tire rubs up against the wheelhouse on the inside of the body, especially when you're turning. Now, variables change all of these fitment things. When you tell people these tires and wheel combinations will fit, all kinds of things come into play. Like I said, the height of the rear of the car. If it's up over the tire, well, that changes a lot of things. If it's not, it's sitting down lower, that makes it worse and it won't fit. Your leaf spring bushings. If your leaf springs bushings are worn or sagging or not tight and the car's got more sway to it, it might fit fine and not scrub in a straight line, but you go around a 1/4 inch scrubs. So there's a lot of things about these cars, information that people talk about. They perpetuate myths, lies, misinformation, bad information, incomplete information, stuff like that. So I'm not the be-all, end-all source of Nova information. Someone asked me the other day, hey, look, what size tire can I put on this thing? And I told him, well, I don't want to tell you because you're going to buy some. He was looking at some very expensive wheels. And I was scared to death that I was going to tell him wrong and he was going to be upset with me because I gave him bad information. Then I realized, you know what, there's a lot of information, including information that I have talked about that could be wrong. Not really wrong, but not complete information. So when you're looking up information on these cars specifically, on a lot of Chevrolet stuff, keep in mind that what works for one person will not work for another person. And some of that stuff will work better for you than it did for other people, and worse for you than it did for other people, vice versa. So thanks for hanging out in the shop with me. Thanks for listening to my 5 myths, lies, false information, bad information, incomplete information, whatever it is. I'm going to call it myths. I'll probably be in the title. Maybe you can catch the title. Thanks for checking out my other videos, and we'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about myths and lies and people. Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. In this video we're going to talk about lies about the Chevy Nova, myths about the Chevy Nova, and just in general things. Weak.